Welcome back to me reading Transported A Wings of Fire story. This time it's going to be chapter 34 and the start of part 2. This part's name is called Heathens. As usual, if this is your first time watching this little series, I recommend you to watch the previous chapters or read them yourself. Now let's begin. For the part 2 thing, a little page, it has Morse code. Now, I already translated it. The first word is Reaper, Karma, Ghost, Wolf, Deadlock, Phoenix, Sub-Zero, Scorch, Crimson, Widow, Python, Mindweb. On to the chapter. This chapter's name is Breaking Through. Loud shouts and screams of terror filled the vicinity. Black cracks grew to enormous sizes as they eroded the crystal blue ice which lined the ground and walls around them. Okay, so what's the plan here? Winter asked, ignoring the chaos around them. Daniel responded quickly. If I can get to the ice cliff, if I can get to the great ice cliff, I can use this to help me break through. He gestured to the very unfitting ice blue tiara on his head, and Star couldn't help but chuckle as he did so. His face fell. Ha ha, so funny. Daniel remarked sarcastically. Yes, I know it looks stupid, but I'll assure you that the power is not. There was another shake in the earth, which caused them to all topple over. To topple over. Daniel's fist smashed into the ground as they did so. The ground shook violently as massive ravines emerged from where Daniel's fist met the ice. There was no time to do anything. The trio fell deep into the opening cracks as the world began to darken. Oh no! Daniel screamed. The wind whipped past the back of his head as he looked up to the falling silhouettes of his friends. Without thinking twice, he flipped himself back up with his wings before boosting into the air. Closing in, he grabbed both of them by the talons as he shot up forward. Hurricane, what did you do? Winter screamed. He let go of Daniel's talons, as so did Star after she regained her bearings on what was happening. I can explain, Daniel shouted back. However, he wouldn't have time as a massive boulder of ice came falling into the ravine, threatening to crush them. Daniel shot forward with a swoop of his wing. He planned to knock it off course, but instead nearly obliterated it. He looked back, surprised. He'd expect the gift of strength to help him move the boulder out of the way, not fully destroy it. Well, I'll be damned. I guess animus magic really does work, doesn't it? The trio flew back to the surface, to which it wasn't much better, honestly. The massive cracks that were caused from the scroll seemed to have stopped spreading, leaving a corrupted pattern imprinted on the ice. However, what did take its place were the deep, dark ravines that had been formed when Daniel's fist hit the ground. Well, that's not good. As Winter and Star joined him, he realized that he had a clear way to the great ice cliff. With all the ice wings in shambles because of the destruction, which was partly his fault, he would be able to break through the wall with minimal issues. All right, if we move now, we'll be able to get to the wall while the guards are too busy with the destruction around them to deal with us, Daniel proposed. Okay, but what if they do notice us and start to chase us? Then what? We don't have a backup plan, do we? Star asked. Well, Daniel said as he made a face. No, we don't, he sighed. But either way, we don't have time. We need to go while we have a chance. Star shot him a reluctant expression, which said, This is a very bad idea. He sighed. Okay, yes, I know that we have little to no plan here, but if you look around, you'll realize we also have little to no time as well. The ground shook again, causing more cracks underneath their talons. More shouts of dragons echoed throughout the vicinity, but this time there was something different. A scream, one that was definitely familiar, rang in his ears. Although all would be answered, once he heard the voice. "Corey!" shouted one of the voices from below, the voice of Penguin, one of the ice wings who Daniel and Star nearly ran into inside the diamond caves. Daniel peeked over to see what horrors were happening. Turns out the cracks in the ground had sprouted small tentacles, which wrapped themselves around the legs of dragons. They were long, thin, and fully black and fully back. What? They were long, thin, and fully back. We love typos here. They make us laugh. And fully back with noting but small white spots on them. Sure. They appeared almost like a moving shadow. Although what really scared Daniel was the fact that he recognized them. I know what's going on here now. These are none other than the gatekeepers. And I have a hunch that getting sucked into one of those will not be pleasant. Quickly he tossed the enchanted Tyra to Winter, who yelped slightly and caught it with surprise. "Hey, what are you doing?" Winter yelled. "No time to explain. Just break down that wall. I got something I need to take care of." He leaped off Tango Echo, T-E, cliff. Oh boy. He leaped off T cliff towards the ground, leaving them behind with the Tyra. "Wait! When will we know when to use it?" Star yelled from behind him. "I'll give a signal. Just trust me. You'll know when you see it." Daniel shouted back, and with that, Daniel dived into the crowd of light blue ice wings. He spun at his target, a little further up in the distance. Two ice wings. One of them had their back legs strangled inside the shadow tentacles, pulling them down into the abyss. The other was desperately trying to help, though it was clear they weren't doing great. "Hold on! I'll get you out of this, Corey!" Penguin grunted as she pulled with all she could, but it was really no use. Daniel saw her look down at her friend, tears forming in her eyes, and that's when he knew what to do. Quickly he tucked in his limbs, but extended one of his talons out to grab her. Immediately he began to fly much faster. However, it was extremely difficult to keep balance. Closing in on his target, he reached out his talon and grabbed the burning, cold talon of the ice wing. With the sudden force from Daniel's flight speed, the shadowy restraints snapped off of Corey's leg. Blue blood splattered off from where the shadowy restraints detached, and bright purple bruises, as well as deep cuts, were all that remained afterwards. Daniel made a painful face. "That's going to leave a mark and probably be extremely painful, but at least she's not being dragged into oblivion." Daniel landed quickly before placing the injured ice wing on the ground. He looked down to Corey. He was surprised. Despite what had just happened to her, she didn't scream. Either that or she's just unable to. He looked up to the sky to see Winter and Star flying to the great ice cliff. Well, at least they got what to do. At least they got what to do. What? Well, at least they got what to do. Sure. He whispered to himself. "Corey!" the other ice wing yelled. They ran over to where Daniel and the injured ice wing were sitting. "Oh, my moons, Corey. Are you okay?" they said desperately as they tried to shake their friend awake. Daniel assumed this was Penguin, the other ice wing who was with them in the diamond caves. "Is she all right?" Penguin suddenly asked Daniel, who was snapped back to attention again. "Yeah, she should be fine. Just make sure those injuries get some treatment." He gestured to Corey's severely torn leg. That is definitely going to scar. He thought to himself. "Well, I best be going. Make sure she's all right," Daniel said to Penguin before he looked to Corey again. To his surprise, she was looking directly back at him, which made Daniel jump a little. It wasn't a menacing glare, more like a soft look of thankfulness. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him for a few moments before closing her eyes. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of Daniel's problems. It was actually just the beginning. A large shadow suddenly loomed over him. Daniel's eyes widened as he looked over his shoulder to see a large Ice-Wing soldier glaring down at him. "Oh, hello there," How's it going? Daniel smiled shyly. Well, I'm screwed, aren't I? It's going well, the Icewing said. However, I don't think you're supposed to be here. He growled dangerously as Daniel got up to face him. Haha, you're right. So, best that I'll be on my way now, Daniel said quickly as he turned around to take off into flight. The guard, however, had other plans. The guard, however, had different plans as he stomped on Daniel's tail, which made him yelp in pain. Oh no, the guard said with a devilish smirk and a slightly sinister tone in his voice, to which Daniel assumed he was just trying to sound menacing, since he needed to keep his soldier composure. No, I think the Queen would love to have a nice long chat with you, he said before adding, Skywing, in a sort of a disgusted way. He looked Daniel in the eyes. A now worried smile printed across his face as his hear began to what? As his hear began to pick up pace. Okay. Well, great. I guess Nightwings aren't the only tribe that Icewings have crushes with. Look, I would love to, but I really need to go. I'm missing school right now and need to get back, Daniel said, trying to play it cool. Depute. Oh boy, we love typos to make us laugh. Depute his hurt and trembling limbs. Oh, no, whatever. Saying otherwise, your school can wait. Our queen can arrange for you to return shortly, after you tell us how in the moons you got into the kingdom in the first place. He was starting to get mad. Daniel looked around to see multiple quiet faces staring at him. They all ranged from confused to scared to angry, none of which Daniel liked in the slightest. But if I want to get out of here, I better start thinking of something fast. The spear in the hands and the spear in the guard's talons shifted in an unorganized way. He noticed this quickly. Is he scared? Worried? Scared and worried for what I can do? He didn't know how to react, but if there was a spark of weakness, then Daniel could possibly use it to his advantage. He looked his oppressor in the eye before quickly flexing his claws in a dangerous way. He continued to stare into the eyes of his foe, to the point where he saw the spear tremble noticeably. So he is scared of me. Interesting. Daniel was about to say something. Listen here, all right? Because I'm only going to say this once. He spoke to the guard in a hushed tone, which surprisingly caught the Icewing off guard. I just saved one of your kind from a very painful death. So if that's not enough to let me go, then I'm not sure what is. But I'll tell you one thing. He gestured to Corey, who was lying next to him. Penguin saying comforting words to her as she treated her wounds before pointing a claw at the Icewing's chest. The guard, who was already secretly terrified, did nothing to oppose Daniel of his actions. If you don't let me go right now, things are going to get real ugly, real fast, Daniel said. The guard stayed silent before bursting out into laughter. Oh, yeah? Like what? Tell me. It's you against an entire army. You're not going to do any harm to us. The guard snickered, and a few others joined in from the large crowd, not watching them. He was trying to make a fool out of Daniel. However, the only thing that Daniel was paying any attention to was the small flying figures of Star and Winter off in the distance. They had reached the wall successfully and were in position to destroy it, though they froze when Daniel saw them look down to him and the troubling situation he was in. Just then, it got even worse, as none other than Snowfall decided it would be a good time to join the party. As soon as she laid eyes on Daniel's bright red scales, her face fell into a menacing fury. What is the meaning of this? And why is there a Skywing inside the kingdom? She demanded. The guard snapped to face her as he switched his posture to a more formal and attentive one. Daniel noticed he had unknowingly moved his back talon off his tail, and as such, there was nothing left keeping him stuck there. I could fly off right now. Tell Winter and Star to break the wall and they'd never catch us. But what's the fun in that? Wait, But, oh my, holy shit. But what's he fun? And then we love typos to make us laugh. After all, I have them all where I want them, all staring at me, and none of them at Star nor Winter at the wall. Nothing they can do but watch it crumble to the ground. That was his plan all along, and Daniel started to laugh, which sent shivers down the spines of everyone around him. What are you laughing about? Starfall stuttered angrily. Oh, nothing. Daniel laughed. Just how you guys have no idea what's about to happen. You're really still going on about how you're going to make us regret capturing you? Pfft, face it, kid. You're not going to do anything to us, the guard said as he pressed his spear on Daniel's throat, his confidence returning after seeing the large amount of armed ice wings around them. Daniel sighed. Well, I tried. Don't say I didn't warn you. He inhaled a massive gust of air before he returned it as a massive blast of it into the air. It grew up to tremendous heights, making a bright glow in the air before eventually dying out. He looked at the guard again, who just stared back, slightly amused. Well, I'll hand it to you. That was pretty impressive, but a simple fire won't stop an army. Well, a simple fire show won't stop an army. And that's when Daniel hit him with his wild card. Who said I was trying to stop an army? The faces of everyone around him fell to confusion before shock. As seconds later, his fire show, multiple colossal rumbles were heard, and everyone looked towards the source in fear. Everyone watched as a small silhouette that only Daniel knew the true identity of slashed the great ice cliff. With each cliff, came a colossal sized crack and quake. It only took 3 hits before the great ice wall collapsed completely and was turned into the great ice cubes. I guess they got my signal, Daniel thought, relieved. With quick timing, he swiped his tail under the legs of the guard in front of him, which caused him to topple over besides the already fallen Corey. Unluckily for the guard, his head ricocheted against a smooth rock, peeking out of the ground, which knocked him out clean. Daniel turned to look at the Icewing Queen as the entirety of the ice wall collapsed behind them. He grinned. Don't say I didn't warn you. The Queen looked between him and the destruction that had just occurred. Who are you? Stofal asked. Pure terror for the first time in her life flowed throughout her in her whole body. Daniel's smile deepened into a sort of sinister one. He didn't know why, but he felt powerful, like he could take on the whole army if he wanted to, despite the obvious fact he'd lose. Quickly, Daniel picked up the rock that the royal guard had unluckily knocked himself out on. He scratched something into it quickly before he tossed it at Snowfall. Catch! It landed at her feet, but before he could pick it up. Wait, what? Before he could pick it up? Yeah, sure, whatever. To see what Daniel had written, he was already up in the air, flying out of the kingdom, through the pile of now deemed great ice cubes, so fast that no one even saw him take up. Daniel flew off as he began to catch up with his friends. Looking back, he saw the entirety of the Ice Wing army staring at him, while Snowfall finally picked up and read what Daniel had written on the rock. Call me Reaper. And that is the end of this chapter. Besides, as usual, the author's note at the very bottom. Hello, amazing people. I hope you enjoyed this new chapter and the first chapter of part 2. It took me a little while to get out, but nonetheless, it's now here. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys with the next one. Adios. So, the Geek Chat protagonist and his gaggle fuck of friends obliterated a big, giant, beautiful wall. And now Daniel has assumed his alter ego of the Reaper. A little bit of typos in this one. That's all I have to say about it. See you next time.